Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to Coaching Gupshup with Smita and Kiwa. This is episode 17th, Kiwa, right?
That's right.
And we are coming after not so long break, but after a break.
Yes.
And the topic that we have chosen for today's Gupshup is coaches' wellness. We thought that it's very relevant for coaches, and basis our experience as coaches, we thought let's explore this topic together. Please feel free to share your after you've heard us, you feel free to share what you feel about and what you do about taking care of your wellness. Okay, Kiva, shall we get started?
Yes, let's do it. So should we start by actually sharing what got you and I to think about this topic first and then build on that?
Yeah. We were covering on so many topics around coaching and this important piece about coaches' wellness, I think really is the start point. ICF also, when they revised their, the competencies, they introduced embodying a coaching mindset as a competency, and I think it's a brilliant competency, which is really to focus on the coach, right? Like that's about the coach's wellness, is what I think. So yeah, maybe we can start by understanding or defining for us as to what coach's wellness means for us.
Yeah. So I think for our audience, just a couple of days back, Smita and I were just talking about certain conversations that rejuvenate us, that leave us feeling energized, a coaching conversation. And at the same time, there are certain conversations that don't feel as rejuvenating or can sometimes also be draining. And that's when we were just discussing, like, is it because of the timing of the conversation? Is it because of the way the conversation happened? Like, what really is causing that? And I think that led us to a few discoveries, and we thought that this could be a good space for us to bring that to everybody. So should we build on that, Smita? Like, what is it that actually happens in certain conversations, coaching conversations, that could pull down our energy or not keep us as rejuvenated, would I think be the right word, as maybe in some conversations?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, right, like it depends upon multiple factors. Like sometimes it's the time, sometimes it is, we are not machines. Like the coaches are also coming with some kind of, the day would have started in a particular way. And also the client would have come with certain energy, and there is that, energy exchange happening in that process. So there are multiple factors. I really don't think so we can pinpoint on one thing, but I think it's more about how do we manage that situation. And what you're talking now about is, the certain conversations rejuvenate and certain drain. How do we manage ourselves, like, as coaches, and get prepared for the other one? So I think that part is more important than what happens during the conversation. I mean, during the conversation, it will be in our hands to manage the conversation, and post that, I think it's about what we are going to discuss today in terms of the wellness of the coach.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I think the energy exchange that one experiences, because I recently had this experience where in one conversation, and I'd been meeting this client for a couple of sessions. So it felt like there was that level of comfort and an understanding. But like I left feeling really drained after one of the conversations. And then I had another conversation a day later. Again, like a similar situation, having worked with the client for a while, but it's this time, like, it felt really rejuvenating. So I was trying to compare, and I was like, energetically, it felt different, and somewhere, like when I look back, I can think of in the second conversation, it looked like things were in sync, which means that somewhere the values that were playing out, the scenarios that were playing out, and the approach the client was taking was somewhere in sync with probably how I operate as a person. So that energy kind of matched on its own. Whereas in the first scenario where I felt a little drained, maybe at some level there was a bit of dissonance. right? But as a coach, like, it's not about me, right? It's about the client, and it's about the way that they think, they'd like to move forward. So I think it's that detachment that somewhere intellectually exists, and you know that, and you try to embody the coaching mindset that we spoke about a while back as well. But I was just trying to reflect and see, what went on in that conversation, and maybe at some level I felt like, subconsciously, that dissonance probably played out in energy. It played out in, I don't know, in some format in which I was aware that I don't want to bring in the bias, but maybe somewhere, like you said, being a human, it could exist somewhere in the mind. And it did feel like I needed a break after that conversation. So to
Yeah.
your point, and on how do you actually manage? So like right now I'm in this space where it's like the reflection to a degree has happened, but I don't know what to do about it, because I don't want that dissonance to play out in any form at all, even energetically. Maybe the words being used are right, but otherwise. So maybe we can, in our discussion, come up with some answers for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this part, the reflection part, I believe is definitely a part of the wellness, is where you become aware about what's happening, right? Like, and then you can make changes the way that would work for you, for the client. And it's already started. So reflection definitely is a part of wellness, and everybody, each of us can have our own maybe mechanism. Like, I can share my example. So post every coaching conversation, I definitely would, the first thing I would do now, right? Like after, and that's over after so many years, I used to earlier just write, the things that I have missed or the things I have not done well. So this question was not right. This question, was not open, or this question didn't cover, listening, or presence was absent, all of that, right? Like just the negatives. But now I have changed that process, and I focus on the strengths as much as the missed opportunities. I think that part around the reflection really helps me to dump things on a paper and give a helicopter view to it, saying that, it's absolutely okay. This is an experience, and through every reflection, there is a learning. And maybe after that, maybe I just go for a walk or cook, which I that gives me a break from whatever I have done, and then move to another, conversation or work or whatever. That breaks the high. The too much of high is also sometimes, might have other impacts. So it helps really to balance, and then get back again to another conversation.
Two very interesting things that you shared, Smita. One was around having your own internal mechanism and knowing what is it that your body, your mind, your emotions require, maybe after a conversation, and creating, a system for yourself. The second thing that I'm thinking about is the word around the pressure bit that I could sense as you were talking as well, which is especially as a new coach where you're picking up these skills, you want every conversation to go well. And you enter with that mindset that I'm going to give it my 100% and more. And I think somewhere that pressure, I don't know for others, but from what I can make out, maybe you experienced it when at an early stage in your coaching journey. And I also experience it right now as well, where when I enter, I'm like, this has to be like a really good conversation,
A
and
successful conversation, like,
yeah, like, all
client
those
should have
words,
all the answers while
aha
leaving.
moment, and they should leave thinking this was life changing.
Yeah.
Somehow that external,
Pressure of performance really helps to lose the presence, and it's too much result oriented conversation where, like we say, right, like not coaching the person but coaching the markers out there to say that, did I cover 3.1, 3.2, 3.4, all of
I'm
that.
in that journey right now, Smita. I'm like, oh, I missed 3.4 again.
Yeah, and Kiva, absolutely, like, that word that you said is absolutely right, which is about journey. So it's really a journey, I think, always. If the day maybe MCC coach starts seeing themselves as, they have reached the destination, the learning stops there.
Yeah. So, this reminded me of a conversation I had with one of my cohort members. We did peer coaching, and after that, we were just discussing how things are going with both of us. And so I remember she mentioned that she's going to now be meeting her first client, like a paid client. And she said, I'm really nervous because, it's like the person is going to be making a payment for that 1 hour, or, 40 minutes of the conversation. And it really can't go wrong. So we just discussed like, okay, where's that pressure coming from? So even that monetary aspect, like, because when you're practicing with peers at the start of your journey, it still is a comfortable zone because it's more from a space of learning. Like I coach you, you give me feedback, you coach me, I give you feedback. But I think the moment it's like a client outside, and now it's like you're in the, you're no more in the swimming pool, you're in the ocean now. And now you have to
Yeah.
prove that your worth, every minute is well spent. So I'm just trying to think from your experience, Smita, like what is it that can help maybe early coaches early on in their journey to overcome this challenge that comes? Because I think I will also face it, right? Like no matter what the amount, I'll be like, oh my God, I better do a good job.
Yeah, when we just started, I think that was such a brilliant way of learning, Kiva, where my trainer, like Miss Priya, taught when I was training with her, saying that in the conversation, like initially when you start, you're just maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours in the practice, then maybe focusing just on one competency, like just be observant of maybe just one thing. How was your listening, for example? Or how was your presence, for example, right? And just mark yourself or reflect for yourself on those post the conversation is over. And similarly, when we introduce frameworks like, for example, say lassie, right? It's listening, acknowledging, sensing and sharing, inquiry, and again evoking awareness, exploration. So instead of focusing right from the start in every conversation that you will use the full all the acronyms there, rather than that, can I just say that I'll just listen today, or I will go from the first conversation to the second. Now today I'm going to move to acknowledging. I'll check if in the conversation whether the need for acknowledgement comes, and I use that. Then I would go to sense and share. So it's like, instead of putting a pressure on ourselves saying that the entire framework to be used in every conversation, but rather, can I say I will use one? Can I focus? So I think it's like you said beautifully, it's a journey. I feel that's a constant reminder. It's always a journey, and there is no best or worst. I was recently reading by a post on LinkedIn where it said there are no bad or bad or good questions. It's only bad or good experiences, good or bad experiences. And through that, can be, through our bad experience, so-called bad experiences, can the learnings be achieved.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Smita. And I think looking at every opportunity as an experience, I think as it is makes it lighter, right? Versus something you have to accomplish, versus saying it's an experience. And I think like how we discussed, right? Coaching, like good coaching would be like a dance where things are moving smoothly, and you enjoy as well. And there's that energetic exchange as well. And you're enjoying it as well. I think so. I think rather than putting your complete focus on, did I mark this? Did I mark this? I hope this is going well. Be in the moment. And I really like what you said about listening, because I think a lot of times during coach training, I've heard Cindy also say that focus on listening, be completely present. Everything else will flow, because when you listen, you're observing, you'll ask those questions that are needed out of curiosity and not out of taking off a marker. So I think so I think we've discussed a lot about challenges that maybe coaches might face at the beginning of their coaching journey, or at closer to maybe just getting started. But what about coaches, let's say, who have experience like you, Smita? What are the kind of challenges that you think they face which are different from these early challenges?
I think it's more or less the same. It's like we are ever
The
evolving.
management, but
Yeah, it's like maybe in the early days there was no awareness about maybe the judgments coming in, and maybe post the session, I would over dwell in that, like as a part of my reflection process, I would over dwell on that, saying, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and all of that. As getting evolved, now the reflection happens, but it's a balance between both. And maybe, again, as further learning, maybe, the missed opportunities, maybe I will find out some ways to tackle, reframe the way that the question is asked, learn some new tools or frameworks which can help manage the conversations. So it's like ever evolving. I think the challenges are the same, but as we experience, we try finding out various ways and means to find the answers. And it's not like, again, a cookie cutter approach. What might be best for me might not be best for you. So finding out my own best way to manage that situation, which I can adopt very easily, like get adapted to it very easily. I think that is the learning.
Yeah. Almost like saying you're building that muscle. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but over the years, maybe how you manage a situation that probably you dwelled upon for like hours and hours previously. Now you know how to detach faster, have a mechanism for yourself, and move ahead. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of another example, maybe quickly to share about coaches' wellness. Is about there will be there are conversations where I come across where there is a value mismatch, where there is an energy mismatch, all of that. And the best thing out there is to somewhere manage in the conversations again, and then post the conversation, find out as to what's bothering, rather than just going with the flow to say that and judge, right? Like in the conversation as coaches, we've learned and being ethical by not using any other modalities closer to coaching. But post the conversation is over, the judgments do come in, right? But how do we use those judgments, which can be healthy for us as well? That's been my, again, something which I'm still processing. I'm still working on it. Not there. It's a journey. It's a journey.
As you shared this, actually, I got reminded of one of the coach training sessions recently, where it was very like it was a new learning for me on how a judgment that was probably like in the conversation. It was like a role play we did during class, and in the conversation there was a judgment that was coming out, from the client's end, and the coach could sense that judgment and wasn't probably sitting well with the coach, but the coach brought it out so gently, inquiring, versus saying, I see this, saying, is this something, which could also mean that no, that's not true, which is fine. But I think just opening that up kind of, then the energy came back again to, for it to be leveled again, because otherwise it looked a little like, something's going on in someone's mind. But the moment it's out, it's like, okay, here's what's going on. I'm just inquiring, just thinking about it. And then I think the judgment also disappears. But if the judgment is sitting inside somewhere and we don't know how to bring it out in a gentle way because you can be wrong as well. And you could also be biased as a coach. So that was like a very nice, like an advanced skill. I hope I can master sometime, but it was very nice to see. I think that is a good example of how a coach can manage their wellness during the session, because I think a lot of times we put that pressure, right? That we are human, right? We're not crossing the ethical boundary, but there is something further that can be inquired there, which could help move the conversation further. So that thin line that exists. So that was.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's a very good point, Kiva. It's also a part of the competency where it is said that, the coaches should share whatever, like intuitively they're feeling, but without attachment, right? Yeah. And if that judgment is used and asked in a curious way, like an open and a curious question, and the choice is left on the coachee to say that, I resonate or I don't resonate, and that should be okay with the coach. And that actually releases so much pressure on releases the pressure from the coach so much, right?
Correct. So I think what I'm hearing is, one, a lot of the pressure is coming from within. Maybe people outside, the clients, nobody's really putting that pressure. It's us, and maybe to a degree, we put that pressure because we want to do well. We want to give the client the best experience. The intention is right. So I think we should keep the intention alive, but match it well with a system that works for us so that the experience actually ends up being as favorable as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as important the coaching conversation, as important the being of the coach, that important is the wellness of the coach, because that is what will prepare us for the next conversation. And so, Kiva, what are some of the ways that maybe you do after a coaching session or before a coaching session? Like, is there something that you do?
So before the coaching session, I have a rule, which again, I learned from Nobantu during Coaching Foundation. 15 minutes before the conversation, no email, not looking at your mobile, just sit quietly. I think Ram has also shared this with me a number of times that I should, meditate or watch, like sit in silence. So I think I've started to use that as a practice, and I'm seeing that as a huge difference in how I show up right at the start. And it's like you're completely centered, and you don't bring your own emotions or other things into the conversation. So I think that itself takes care of the first level of your wellness, because you're coming in with a completely rested mind to a degree. Post conversation, honestly, I don't think I've developed any strong mechanism, but if I do feel a little like not very good after a particular conversation, then I do think about like what about it, and it's mostly energetic for me. Like I just feel like energetically something was off, and if the questions were not asked like in the best way possible, I'm okay with that. I'm like, okay, I'll have another chance, I'll work on it, and here's a skill. But sometimes when there's that energy disbalance, that time I'm like, okay, there is something there for me to work on. So I try to then explore through like a reflective practice for myself on what was really playing out. But again, I think I have a lot to learn in that area on how to build a clear mechanism. Yeah.
I mean, like we said, right? Like I think becoming aware of it is the first step to wanting to get better, right? Like so I think you're a good at a good stage. So for me, just before the start and after the conversation is also over, it's about focusing on the breath. So focusing on 3 long breath in and out. So almost like 6 seconds it takes. And post that, as I said, right, like writing down, putting few things which are just on top of my mind without mincing or judging or but I have made this discipline for myself that I'll start with my strengths and then go to the missed opportunities. That is the other. And the third is about, just even if it's a 5 minutes play with my kids or any quick, making a coffee for the family or something which really helps me to move away from my device. So, yeah.
I think starting with strengths definitely sounds really good.
Yeah. And that was really a great learning. So I think we are already on top of our set time for this conversation. But we would really love to hear from our audience as to, as a coach, what do you do for your wellness? You are very important in the conversation, right? Like each of us have to take care of so many things about ourselves, whether it is emotional, physical, mental, the self-reflection part of it. Conversations can be draining, can be energizing, but all of that needs to be balanced. So please do share with us, and we would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Smita.
Thank you, Kiva. Had a great conversation yet again, and looking forward for the next week's conversation again. Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much. Just one last thing, Smita, like we discussed, it would also be really good to hear from our viewers. If there is a topic that's on your mind that you'd like us to bring to the space, then do let us know. You can write to Smita or you can write to me. email IDs are smita@kocharya.com and kiwa@kocharya.com. And we'd love to hear from you on what you'd like us to bring to this space. So thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.